Watch your mouth in my house.
I built it with you.
Then prove you can survive without me.
Chiamaka Eze felt the slap crack across her face before she even saw Ikena's hand move. Before we get into this, hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and comment right now if you're ready for this story. Because what happens to Chiamaka in the next 20 minutes will break something in you. She stumbled back against the kitchen wall, palm pressed to her burning cheek, eyes wide with a shock that hadn't yet turned to grief. 3 years earlier, that same hand had cupped her face on their wedding night, trembling with a tenderness she thought would last forever. "Ikena," she whispered, voice cracking, "what is happening to you?" He didn't answer. He grabbed his car keys off the counter and walked out, leaving her standing in a kitchen that still smelled of the jollof rice she'd cooked for him, the rice he hadn't touched. Rewind 3 years and Chiamaka was a different woman, laughing, radiant, dancing barefoot in her mother's compound the night before her wedding. Ikena had held her hands under the moonlight, his forehead pressed to hers. "I will never let anything hurt you," he had murmured. "Not while I'm breathing." She believed him. She married him that next morning in a small church in Enugu, her mother, Chidinma, weeping happy tears in the front pew, her uncle, Obina, beaming beside her. Ikena kissed her in front of everyone, pulling her close, his hand at the small of her back, and the whole church erupted into cheers. It was the kind of kiss that made her forget every fear she had ever carried into that marriage. For the first year, it was everything she dreamed. Ikena came home early. He brought her flowers from the roadside sellers near his office. He would trace his fingers along her collarbone at night and whisper how lucky he was. And she would kiss him back, deep and unhurried, feeling like the luckiest woman in Enugu. Then came their daughter, Chidera. And with her arrival, something in Ikena began to shift. Subtly at first, the way a crack spreads through glass before it shatters. He started staying later at the office. His voice, once soft, grew clipped. Money that used to arrive without her asking now came in trickles, and only after she begged. "Ikena, the school fees are due," she said one evening, bouncing baby Chidera on her hip. He didn't look up from his phone. "Am I your ATM machine now?" She flinched. "I'm your wife. I'm asking my husband for help with our daughter." "Then manage what I give you," he snapped, standing so fast the chair scraped against the floor. "You people will kill me with demands." That night, she cried into her pillow so that her daughter didn't hear. She told herself it was stress. Men change when the pressure of providing weighs on them, her mother had always said. She held onto that thread of hope like a woman clinging to a rope over a cliff. But the rope was already fraying. Weeks turned into months, and Ikena's coldness hardened into cruelty. He mocked her in front of visitors, called her useless when dinner wasn't ready the moment he walked in. And once, when she asked why he came home smelling of unfamiliar perfume, he grabbed her wrist so hard it bruised. "Ask me that again," he hissed, his face inches high. She said nothing. She learned in those months the particular silence of a woman swallowing her own screams. It was Obina, her uncle, who first noticed something was wrong. He came to visit one Sunday and found Chiamaka thinner, her eyes hollow, flinching every time a door slammed. "Chiamaka," he said gently, taking her hands, "what is really going on in this house?" She almost told him everything. Almost. But shame closed her throat and she forced a smile instead. "Everything is fine, uncle. Marriage has its seasons." He didn't believe her, but he let it go for now, promising to visit again soon. That same week, Chiamaka discovered a truth that would tear her world apart in a way she never imagined. She had gone to Ikena's office to bring him lunch, a habit of happier days, only to find a woman named Ifunaya sitting behind Ikena's desk as though she owned it, laughing at something Ikena had said, her hand resting on his arm with a familiarity that made Chiamaka's stomach drop. "Oh," Ifunaya said, glancing up with a smile that held no warmth at all. "You must be the wife." The wife. Not Chiamaka, Not Ikena's beloved, the wife, said like a job title, like an inconvenience. Chiamaka looked at Ikena, silently begging him to deny it, to explain, to do anything that would make the ground stop tilting beneath her feet. He said nothing. He simply looked away, guilt and defiance warring on his face. She walked out of that office and did not cry until she reached her car. Then she screamed into the steering wheel, a sound so raw it frightened her own ears. That night, Ikena came home late, reeking of alcohol and Ifunaya's perfume. Chiamaka confronted him at the door, her voice shaking. "Who is she to you, Ikena? Tell me the truth. I deserve the truth." "You deserve nothing," he spat, pushing past her. "A man works hard all day and comes home to interrogation. Is this the peace I asked God for? You are bringing another woman into our lives and I'm the problem?" Her voice rose, cracking with disbelief. "I gave you everything, Ikena. My youth, my body, my children. And this is what you give me back?" He turned on her then, something dark flashing in his eyes. "Watch your mouth in my house." "Your house?" She laughed, bitter and broken. "I built this house with you, brick by brick, sacrifice by sacrifice." That was when he struck her. The slap that opened this story, the one that finally shattered whatever illusion remained of the man she married. Little Chidera's cry rang out from the bedroom, startled awake by the noise. Chiamaka rushed to her daughter, gathering her trembling body into her arms, humming a lullaby through her own tears. If you're feeling this story in your chest right now, that's exactly the point. Comment below where you're watching from, because the next part of Chiamaka's story is even harder to survive. That night, lying beside her sleeping daughter, Chiamaka stared at the ceiling and made a silent vow. Something had to change. She just didn't yet know how much worse things would get before she found the courage to save herself. The weeks that followed felt like walking on broken glass in bare feet. Chiamaka moved through her own home like a stranger, flinching at every slammed door, every raised voice from the sitting room where Ikena now spent his evenings on the phone, laughing softly into it in a way he never laughed with her anymore. She confided in no one, not yet. Shame had built a wall around her heart, brick by brick, the same way love once had. Then Chidera fell sick. It started as a small cough, the kind Chiamaka had seen 100 times before. But by the third night, her daughter's small body burned with fever. Her breathing came in shallow rasps, and her eyes rolled back with a weakness that sent ice through Chiamaka's veins. "Ikena!" she screamed, running into the sitting room with Chidera limp in her arms. "She's burning up. We need to go to the hospital now." He barely looked up from his phone. "Give her paracetamol. It's probably just malaria." "Look at her!" Chiamaka's voice cracked, tears streaming freely now. "This is not ordinary malaria, Ikena. Please, I'm begging you." He sighed, like she was the inconvenience, not their dying daughter, and reluctantly handed her a few crumpled notes, barely enough for a taxi, let alone hospital fees. Chiamaka took them with shaking hands and ran into the night, flagging down a motorcycle, clutching Chidera to her chest the entire ride, praying under her breath. "Please, God, not my daughter, please." At the hospital, the doctors moved quickly, hooking Chidera to a drip, murmuring words like severe dehydration and delayed treatment that made Chiamaka's stomach twist with guilt and rage in equal measure. She sat by her daughter's bedside all night, holding her small hand, whispering apologies she didn't deserve to be making. When she called Ikena to update him, his response gutted her in a way she hadn't expected. "It will make me to come now," he said, voice distracted, muffled laughter in the background, a woman's laughter. "Important?" Chiamaka's voice shook with disbelief. "Your daughter is on a hospital bed and you are handling something important?" "Don't start, Chiamaka. Everything is not about you." The line went dead. She stared at her phone, then at her daughter's fragile small face, and something inside her, some final stubborn hope, quietly snapped. 2 nights later, Unable to sleep, Chiamaka crept toward Ikena's study to return a file he'd asked for. The door was slightly ajar, his voice low on a call. She meant to knock, she meant to announce herself, but something in his tone made her freeze. Just be patient, Ifeanyi, he was saying, gentleness dripping from every word, the kind of gentleness he used to reserve only for her. I know Chiamaka is asking questions, but she has no power here. I built everything. She owns nothing. She will manage or she will leave, and either way, it changes nothing for us. Chiamaka's hand flew to her mouth to stifle the sob threatening to escape. She backed away slowly, her legs barely holding her weight, and stumbled into the bathroom, where she finally let herself break, silently, violently, grief and fury tangled together in the same breath. There was another child, Ifeanyi's child, and Ikena had been planning a life with them all along, while his own daughter fought for her life on a hospital bed he refused to visit. The next morning, Chiamaka called her mother, Chidimma, for the first time in months without pretending everything was fine. "Mama," she whispered into the phone, voice hoarse from crying, "I don't know what to do anymore." "Tell me everything, my daughter," Chidimma said gently. "Don't hide it from me again." And so, for the first time, Chiamaka told her. The slaps, the humiliation, Ifeanyi, the child, all of it, pouring out in a flood she could no longer hold back. Chidimma arrived that same evening with Obinna beside her, both their faces tight with a mixture of grief and fury. When Ikena walked in and found them seated in his sitting room, his expression flickered. Surprise, then irritation, then a cold, practiced defiance. "Ikena," Chidimma said, her voice steady, despite the storm clearly raging beneath it. "What is going on in this house? My daughter is wasting away before my eyes." "With respect, Mama," Ikena said, folding his arms, "this is between me and my wife. You don't need to involve yourself." "She is my involvement," Chidimma snapped, rising to her feet. "I gave birth to her. I raised her, and I will not sit back and watch a man destroy her slowly and call it marriage." Obinna stepped forward, his voice low but firm. "Ikena, we heard about Ifeanyi. We heard about the child. Do you have any shame left in you at all?" Ikena's jaw tightened, and for a moment, something like guilt flickered across his face, quickly replaced by anger. "You people came into my house to insult me?" "No," Chiamaka said quietly, finally finding her voice, standing between them all with a strength she didn't know she still had left. "They came because I asked them to. Because I am tired, Ikena. I am so tired." The room fell into a heavy, dangerous silence. If this story has you holding your breath right now, smash that like button and comment where you're watching from, because what Ikena does next will shock you completely. Ikena looked at his wife, at her tear-streaked face, at the quiet fire now burning behind her where there used to only be pleading, and something in him recognized, perhaps for the first time, that he was losing control of the narrative he'd so carefully built. Ikena's composure cracked first in his eyes, a flicker of panic before the mask of arrogance slammed back down. "Fine," he said, voice low and cold. "You want the truth? You will have it." He turned to face Chiamaka fully, ignoring her mother and uncle as though they were furniture in his own sitting room. "Yes, there is a child. Yes, Ifunanya is carrying something real for me, something you stopped giving me the moment you became just a wife and a mother and nothing else." His words landed like blows, each one calculated to wound. "I gave you a house. I gave you children. What more do you want from me?" "I wanted a husband," Chiamaka said, her voice trembling but rising with a strength that startled even her. "Not a landlord, not a stranger who slaps me and then goes to whisper sweet words to another woman on the phone." "Watch yourself," Ikena warned, stepping closer, but Obinna moved quickly, placing himself between them. "Touch her again," Obinna said, his voice deadly quiet, "and you will answer to me, not to her." Ikena's fist clenched at his sides, but something in Obinna's stillness made him hesitate. He turned back to Chiamaka instead, his voice dropping into something almost pitying. You think you can survive without me? You have no job, no money of your own. Where will you even go? I will go, Chidinma said, stepping forward, her voice trembling with fury and love in equal measure. To my house, where my daughter and my grandchildren will always have a place, even if their father has forgotten what shame feels like. Chiamaka looked at her mother, at the fierce protective love in her eyes, and something inside her that had been curled small and frightened for months finally began to unfurl. I'm leaving, Ikenna, she said, surprising herself how steady the words came out. Tonight. He laughed, a short, ugly sound. You'll come crawling back within a week. You people always do. Maybe, she said, lifting her chin, or maybe I'll finally learn to breathe again. That night, Chiamaka packed 2 bags with trembling hands, while Chidera slept in the next room, oblivious to the earthquake reshaping her small world. Every item she folded felt like a piece of her old life being carefully, painfully dismantled. The wedding photo she left behind on the dresser, the ring she slipped off her finger and placed gently on his pillow, the perfume he once loved that she now poured down the sink, as though washing away every trace of the woman who had once believed his lies. Ikenna watched from the doorway, arms crossed, jaw tight, saying nothing as she lifted her sleeping daughter into her arms and walked past him without a backward glance. Comment below right now if you're rooting for Chiamaka to walk away and never look back, because leaving is only the beginning of what's coming. The drive to her mother's house passed in a blur of streetlights and silent tears. Obinna drove, his knuckles white on the steering wheel, glancing at her niece in the rearview mirror every few minutes, as though checking she was still breathing, still holding together. You did the right thing, he said quietly, breaking the silence somewhere past the 3rd junction. Chiamaka said nothing at first, staring out the window at the dark city sliding past. Then why does it feel like my chest has been cracked open, uncle? Because you loved him, Obinna said simply, and love doesn't leave quietly, even when it should have left a long time ago. When she arrived, Chidinma was already waiting at the gate, having rushed ahead to prepare a room. She pulled Chiamaka into her arms the moment she stepped out of the car, holding her tightly, rocking her gently the way she used to when Chiamaka was a little girl afraid of thunderstorms. You are safe now, her mother whispered into her hair. Whatever comes next, you are not facing it alone. For the first time in longer than she could remember, Chiamaka allowed herself to cry without hiding it, without swallowing the sound, without checking over her shoulder for Ikenna's temper. She cried until her body ached, until Chidera stirred and reached small arms up toward her, and Chiamaka held her daughter close, breathing in her innocence, promising her silently that things would be different now. But peace, she would soon learn, does not arrive all at once. It has to be rebuilt slowly from the wreckage of everything that came before. And Ikenna was far from finished trying to pour her back into the storm she had barely escaped. Ikenna showed up at Chidinma's gate 3 days later, pounding on it until Obinna came out to meet him. I want to see my wife, Ikenna demanded. She's not ready and she may never be. Go home, Ikenna. He came back twice more that week, once with flowers he threw over the fence in frustration when no one answered, once shouting apologies into the night air until a neighbor threatened to call the police. Chiamaka heard it all from behind her bedroom curtain, Chidera asleep on her chest, and felt something she hadn't expected. Nothing. No pull to run to him, just quiet, exhausted relief that the door had finally closed. Within a month, Chiamaka found work at a small tailoring shop nearby, sewing hems and altering dresses for a modest wage. It wasn't much, but it was hers, money she'd earned with her own hands, answerable to no one's temper. Chidinma cared for Chidera in the afternoons, and slowly color returned to the child's cheeks, laughter returned to the house. A year passed, then 2. She saved enough to rent a small shop of her own, and word spread of her careful, beautiful stitching. She stopped flinching at slammed doors. She started sleeping through the night. Ikenna came back once more, older, thinner, his charm worn down to something almost pleading. He found her outside her shop and asked quietly if there was any chance of starting over. Chiamaka looked at him for a long moment. This man she once loved with her whole self and felt only calm. I forgive you, Ikenna, but forgiveness isn't the same as going back. I'm not the same woman you left crying on that kitchen floor, and I'm not going back to her either. She turned and walked into her shop, back straight, chin high, her daughter waiting for her at the counter with a proud, gap-toothed smile. If Chiamaka's strength moved you, smash that like button, subscribe for more stories like this one, and comment below where you're watching from, your city, your country, wherever you are. Let this story travel farther than heartbreak ever could.